Sammy's Bookshelf. I'm Sammy and today I am going to be doing my first ever book haul because I finally bought some new books. I'm very excited, so let's get into all the books that I bought recently. I have to show you is Just One by Gayle Foreman, and this is a bind up of all the books in the Just One Day series, which consists of Just One Day, Just One Year, and Just One Night. Very convenient, very practical. I've wanted to read the Just One Day series for the longest time, and recently I have been in the mood to read them, so I finally bought myself a copy. This is about a girl named Allison who meets an actor named Willem, and they end up having a whirlwind day together in Paris, and there is an undeniable spark between them. But the next day, Willem is gone, and it follows Allison throughout the next year as she goes on a journey of self-discovery and romance. I am super excited to finally pick up these books. I've heard so many great things, and it just seems like something I would absolutely love. I read Gayle Foreman's If I Stay duology a really long time ago, so long ago that I've forgotten everything and I don't even remember if I even like them or not, but this just sounds like something I would love. So I'm very excited to finally pick up this book and give it a read. The next books I have to show you is the second half of the Shatter Me series by Tahera Mafi, which consists of Restore Me, Defy Me, and Imagine Me. Throughout this year, I have been collecting all the Shatter Me books because I've been really wanting to do a big binge read of the whole series. I read the original Shatter Me trilogy back when it was just a trilogy a really long time ago, but since then Tahera Mafi has released 3 more books in this series. From what I remember, I really loved the original trilogy and I loved the characters, so I'm super excited to find out what they've been up to in the latest 3 books of the series. And also, I've forgotten so much of the original trilogy that I also want to go back and reread those first 3 books before I go ahead and read the next 3 books, hence my big binge read of the whole series. I'm just going to rotate between holding the 3 different books because I can't hold all 3 at once, so now I'm holding up Defy Me, don't mind me. If you don't know what this series is about, although you probably do, but this is about a girl named Juliet, and she has the power to kill someone by just touching them. And at the beginning of this series, she's locked up for murder, and the plot ensues from there. From what I remember, Tahera Mafi has a really beautiful, lyrical, poetic writing style, so I'm super excited to jump back into Tahera Mafi's writing, especially now since I'm older and I see books in a more critical and constructive way. So with reading the original trilogy and also reading the new series, I'm excited to see if I still enjoy the series as much as I did back when I was 12 when I first read it, although I'm sure I will enjoy it. I haven't actually read any of Tahera Mafi's other books other than her Shatter Me series, although they're all on my TBR and they've been on my TBR for years, so hopefully this will also give me a kick to read Tahera Mafi's other books. I can't wait to binge read this series. I plan to read it during December once I'm on school holidays, so very excited to get into these. The next couple books I am going to show you are books that I actually bought from the actual physical bookstore. Where I live, we had been in lockdown for a really long time, but I had a bunch of vouchers for the bookstore that I hadn't been able to use because they all had to be used in store, and with lockdown I couldn't actually go in store, so I ended up going into the bookstore and buying a heap of books with my vouchers. It was like the happiest moment of my life to go into the bookstore and be surrounded by books once again. So going into the bookstore, the main book that was my priority to pick up was Defy the Night by Brigid Kemmerer. She is the same author who wrote the Cursebreaker series, which I read earlier this year and I really enjoyed, so I was really eager to pick up her newest release. This is the first book in a new fantasy series, and I'd heard so many great things about this book, so I knew I wanted to pick it up and read it straight away. In this fantasy world, there is a sickness going around, and the only cure for it is this plant called the moonflower. And our main character Tessa, along with her partner Wes, steal moonflower and give it to people who can't afford it. It also follows a character named Corrick, and he is the King's Justice, and he is known for being very cruel, and he is the one who doles out punishment to people like Tessa who steal Moonflower. But one day Tessa finds herself in the palace and Tessa and Korrik's worlds collide. I've actually already read this book, but I don't want to go too in depth on my thoughts right now because I will go more in depth about what I liked and didn't like about the book in my November wrap up, but I will say that I really enjoyed it. Whilst I was at the bookstore, I also knew that I finally had to purchase The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is a book that I've wanted to read for ages because there is so much hype surrounding this book on Bookstagram and Book Talk. Anywhere where people talk about books, everyone is talking about this one and how beautiful it is. And this book was also in my 5-star predictions, and I have talked about this book in a couple of my videos because I've been really keen to read it, so I'm excited to finally have my hands on a physical copy so I can actually read it sometime super soon. This is a Greek mythology retelling following the characters Achilles and Patroclus and their relationship. I'm super excited to get to this book. Of course, I know that it is quite the tearjerker, so I definitely have to make sure that I have some tissues around me when I read this book. I absolutely love retellings, especially retellings that center around Greek mythology, because I always feel like I learn so much. And I'm also just excited to finally find out what all the hype is about because, like I said, I've heard so many amazing things about this book. I have a couple of friends who I know in real life who have read this book and loved it, so I'm so excited to finally give this book a read and give my 2 cents about what I think about it. The next book I picked up while I was at the bookstore was Beach Read by Emily Henry. I read People We Meet on Vacation or You and Me on Vacation, depending on where in the world you live, because in America it's called People We Meet on Vacation, and in like the UK and Australia it's called You and Me on Vacation. I don't know why the titles are different. If you know why the titles of People We Meet on Vacation is different, please let me know because I'm very curious. I loved People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, so I've been really keen to also pick up Beach Read because I've also heard a lot of great things about this as well. This book is about 2 authors who are complete opposites. One writes rom-coms and they always have a happily ever after, and the other one is a literary fiction writer, which often includes a lot of death and not a lot of happily ever afters. The one thing these 2 authors do have in common is that for the next 3 months they are going to be living in neighboring beach houses, and they end up striking up a bet. The bet is that they will switch genres and they will both try to write a successful book in each other's genres by the end of the 3 months, and they may or may not fall in love as well in the process. I am super excited to read this in the coming months when it is summer here in Australia. I of course love reading summery books in the summer, don't we all? Next I picked up a Christina Lauren book. I read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren all the way back in January this year and I loved it. It was so cute, and ever since I've really wanted to read more Christina Lauren books, but I just haven't had the chance to. But when I was at the bookstore, I of course picked up some Christina Lauren, so I picked up Roomies. From what I have gathered from the synopsis, this is about a girl who ends up marrying an Irish musician slash actor who is in the country illegally so that he can live out his dreams on Broadway. But what he doesn't know is that our main character has quite a crush on him. Just like The Unhoneymooners and every other Christina Lauren book that I've read the synopsis of, this seems really adorable, and I've heard so many great things about this book, and like I said, I've been really wanting to read more Christina Lauren, which is why I also picked up Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. I saw this book sitting next to Roomies on the shelf, so I ended up just picking up both because I couldn't pick between them. This book, of course, is about 2 characters named Josh and Hazel, and they set each other up on dates and go on double dates together, although they always pick out really awful people for the other to go on a date with. I wonder why? Like I said, this sounds super cute. I'm super excited to read this. Both Roomies and Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating are both seemingly really short and fast-paced, which I always love for a good rom-com. Very excited to read Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating and also Roomies. I'm sure they're both going to be great and adorable, just like The Unhoneymooners was. The last book I ended up picking out whilst I was at the bookstore was Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness. This is the third and last book of the Monsters of Men trilogy. I have heard so many great things about this trilogy, and I've had the first two books in this trilogy, which are right behind me, right here. I've had those first few books for a couple of years now, I think, and now that I have the third book, I have absolutely no excuse to not pick up this series very soon. I've also heard really awful things about the film adaptation, but we won't go there just yet. But I've been really wanting to complete my collection of this trilogy before I read it, because I really love to binge read series, so I love to own all the books before I start reading them, because then I don't have to wait for the sequel. I believe that this series is a dystopian, and I think in this world people can read each other's thoughts. I don't really know much more than that, and I didn't want to read the synopsis because I feel like this is the kind of series I just want to go into without knowing much. I feel like that with a lot of dystopians, because I like to kind of go into this world and the kind of intricacies of a dystopian world without knowing too much about it beforehand. But I am super excited to give this series a binge read, hopefully next year sometime, now that I have the complete series. The next two books that I have are a part of a series, and those books are Kingdom of the Wicked and Kingdom of the Cursed by Kerri Maniscalco. These are the first two books in Kerri Maniscalco's new fantasy series. I'm very excited to get to them. I loved most of the Stalking Jack the Ripper series by Kerri Maniscalco, so I'm super excited to read her newer releases. There has been so much hype surrounding these books. When I was doing the Thrillathon in October, so many people were reading Kingdom of the Wicked, and I was so jealous because I didn't have the books yet, so I couldn't read it. But now I do, so I can finally read them super soon. And these books just seem to have everything that I love. It's got witches in it, it's got an enemies to lovers romance, it's got Princess of Hell and a murder mystery, so everything in this book just makes me super excited to read it. I believe this is about a girl who is a witch and her twin sister is murdered, so she ends up making a deal with a prince from hell to try and solve her sister's murder. I have heard that the main character is super annoying, so I am interested to see if she annoys me. Something else that I find super interesting about this series is that Kingdom of the Curse, the second book, is actually a new adult book, whereas the first book, Kingdom of the Wicked, is actually a young adult book. So I'm excited to see how the maturity level in the second book affects the storytelling, especially compared to the first book, which, like I said, is YA. I have seen a lot of reviews though saying that the decision to make the second book, and I guess the rest of the series new adult, was a really good decision on Kerri Maniscalco's part, and that the heightened maturity level of the second book does make the story a lot better and a bit more nuanced, I guess, and also just, you know, all around more mature. So I'm very excited to get to the second book. Very excited to jump into this series. I have two more books to show you in this book haul, and those books are We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars by Hafsah Faizal. I did have to look up how to pronounce her name, so hopefully I pronounced it right. I've seen this duology everywhere on Bookstagram and every single reel that is recommending enemies to lovers books, and if you haven't caught on yet, I'm a big enemies to lovers fan. It's my favorite trope. The only thing I actually know about this duology is that it's a fantasy and that the main character, I believe, is actually supposed to assassinate her love interest, but obviously things don't go according to plan and she ends up falling in love with him instead. That is just my cup of tea. That is exactly what I love to read in a book. I am also just absolutely loving duologies lately. Some of my favorite series that I've read this year have been duologies. I just love not having to worry about middle book syndrome. It's so great. I am super excited to get to this duology. I've only really heard about the romance, but I'm sure that there is also a fantastic plot running alongside the romance as well. So I'm super excited to read this book and find out what that is. So that is all the books I have to show you. I hope you enjoyed my first ever book haul. Hopefully there are more book hauls to come. Let me know if you've read any of these books that I've just shown you and what you thought of them, and I'll see you next time. Bye!